I'm at Voxxed Thessaloniki, and I'm super excited and pleased to be joined by Linda, who's giving the final keynote, closing out the conference today. Welcome and thanks for coming and talking to us.
Thank you.
So the closing keynote is called 100 Languages. And in that, it feels, from reading the description, you're going to be covering quite a lot of ground based on both your experiences and also where you feel the industry needs to move in the future.
Absolutely. I think technology is far too important to be left only for the technologists. And when we came up with sort of the curriculum around computer science, we had no idea how important computers would end up being for the world. And I think it's time to sort of reinvent a softer, whimsical, more magical way of explaining what computers are and how you talk to computers and how computers talk to each other and how they end up changing societies. And hopefully I'll help rekindle also some of that excitement we all felt when we first wrote our first lines of code for the audience.
Well, I remember just the excitement of seeing my first web page. And now it's quite ubiquitous and everybody's got access to everything, and there's this sense of information overload to some extent as well, and that's a potential danger, I guess. And so I like your concept of trying to rekindle the magic that's involved in that.
Maybe not magic per se, but making it seem magical, because I think one of the beautiful things that computer scientists have done in the past 30 to 40 years is that they have built layers of abstraction on top of each other to the point where we don't need to care about the lower levels of computing, the binary and bit world. But at the same time, they have made computers more foreign to us, and I'm somewhat jealous for people who grew up in the 70s who could actually touch a transistor. Whereas like my generation, you can jam 300 million transistors at the pinpoint of a pen, and there's no way of understanding how all of this technology works around us. And as a consequence, I feel like for a lot of us, computers and technology are magic, although they should be magical, not magic per se.
So how do we make it magical then?
I think making things magical requires us to understand a little bit of how they work, which is a little bit counterintuitive, but let me see if I can make sense for this. A few weeks ago I read this study from UK that said that kids recognize Bulbasaur better than Badger. So it means that kids have a far more eloquent vocabulary around explaining Pokemon species than around the natural world, meaning animals or plants or different kinds of things like that. And the writer was worried about what it means to live in a world where we don't have words to explain what is around us, and what happens when we don't have the vocabulary to sort of observe and explain the world. But more and more of our world is also technical, and there's a lot of people who don't understand what an algorithm is, who don't know what a DDoS attack is. And I think the first step into making things magical again in the world of technology is opening up these black boxes of words that are kind of like vacuums that hold a lot inside of them but let very little out. And that's how we reintroduce magical to the world.
I think that's a really nice notion, and I hope you do it. What are the dangers of us not managing to do that?
That we have a very binary world of people who feel empowered by technology, who create, who solve problems with it, and then we have a very passive part of the society who just feels like, oh, we're going to consume YouTube videos and look at Pinterest pictures and learn about the world through the lenses of Facebook. And I, for one, am much more interested about a world where we give Norwegian little girls powers to express the inner world they have, or Kenyan schoolboys, or just a more diverse group of people who are allowed to solve problems in the world and make it better.
What age would you start to explain that to children?
So I work mostly with kids around 5 to 9 years old. So I start rather young, but I don't start with a screen at all. I start with stories. I start with explaining the concepts in an unplugged manner. So we might be talking about YouTube videos and the algorithms behind YouTube, but we do it without YouTube per se. So we create little videos or on front of a whiteboard. And I think the younger we start, the more meaningful these things become. But you don't need to force the kids to learn the basics of .NET or C# by the age of 6. I think it's more nuanced, and that's where we need more diversity, and also the people who plan these curriculums that introduce technology for the kids.
Definitely. Definitely. I'm really excited to watch your session this afternoon.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for joining us here, and I wish you the best of stays in Greece.
Thank you.
Thank you.